Welcome to Supernormalized, and today we are talking with Rachel Veratimos. She is an astrologer who concentrates on astrology in a different sort of way. She was first skeptical herself of astrology, then started to dive in even deeper and found a path through the use of it, which she calls evolutionary astrology. It enables you as a person to see where you've been, where you're going to, and how to actually make all the right steps in the right way so that you feel more empowered in your life and generally get a happier life. That sounds cool to me. This is a great episode. She gives you all the details on how she does that with a greater understanding of astrology. Wow. You're going to love it. All right. Make sure you listen all the way to the end, and thank you very much, and enjoy. Looking at the statistics that I have for YouTube and for my podcast apps, I have a lot of listeners and viewers that aren't yet liked and subscribed. So if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. It's free. And if you're on a podcast app, please give me 5 stars. That'd be really cool. It helps other people find these great conversations too. Thank you. Welcome to Supernormalized, Rachel Veratimos. Rachel, you are an astrologer, but with a different sort of angle. And I would say that angle is of, you call it evolutionary astrology. I love that idea. I've never heard of it before. And then I went and read all of your stuff in the last, hour and a bit in preparation. And I'm like, well, why doesn't other people do this? Where did this come from? So you've got to tell us your personal journey, the things you overcome to get here, and what influenced your path into evolutionary astrology and becoming an empowered coach. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
so evolutionary astrology is a little different than some other astrology. If I'm completely honest, I used to not believe in astrology at all. I used to think I'm just a very practical person, very logical, and whenever people would talk about astrology, I would almost like roll my eyes, because it felt so woo-woo, and, there's so much astrology out there that's just so predictive. They're like, this is going to happen in your life, and that just never sat well with me. And so when I found evolutionary astrology, that sat well with me because it's the idea that we're evolving towards a certain energy. And it's about the in the moment evolution and using astrology to really help you grow and evolve and really reach the pinnacle of what you're here to reach in this lifetime. And so when I started getting into astrology and using it as a tool for growth rather than just as a predictive tool to be like, this is what's going to happen, let it happen to you, that's when it actually started clicking with me. And it has been the source of the deepest, most profound, most intense growth in my life. And then it's also been the source of the most deepest, most profound growth in people I work with lives too. So it's not just me. And that's what's so cool about it. It took me a while to believe in it because I had to gather evidence and really see how you could use it and have utility. So a little background on me. I've been really into personal development and growth since I was about 9 years old. I was an obese 9-year-old and I didn't have any friends, and I just closet ate, and I just didn't know why I was different from other kids. And so I remember I begged my parents to let me go to this weight loss camp because I wanted to look like the other kids. And so that kickstarted my personal development journey. They let me go. I hit my goal of losing 20 pounds in 6 weeks. I actually lost 23 pounds in 6 weeks. That's what they had promised. And then I learned a lot of disordered eating habits. So I know. So it's funny because I ended up making friends at that camp and feeling like I fit in for the first time. But what it also taught me is if I lose weight, then I can have friends. And so then that kickstarted me trying to find the answers to staying thin and being healthy so I could keep friends. So I spent from 9 through about age 24 obsessively learning about nutrition. I got my degree in nutrition in college. I became a functional diagnostic nutrition therapist, and I was seeking all of these answers outside of me. I wanted to learn the perfect diet where I could just eat this way and have the body I want and it not be so hard. But, you know, when you're on the dieting train and you learn disordered eating habits, everything is hard. It's like this obsessive trauma almost. And so I never found my answer, no matter how much schooling I went to, no matter how many degrees I got. And eventually I got to this place where I just could not bear to learn any more about nutrition and how to stay thin. And it was in that moment that I surrendered and I just decided to go back to the basics. And I ate healthy and I ate when I was hungry and I stopped when I was full and I just ate whole foods. That's what I mean by healthy, is I wasn't eating processed foods. I was eating fruits, vegetables, meat, protein, whole foods. And in like 3 months, my body weight normalized at a weight that previously was so hard for me to maintain, and I wasn't trying at all. Like for the first time, I actually felt connected to the cues in my body. And it was the first time I realized, oh my God, all of the answers are inside you. You know, they're like literally I didn't have to spend 20 years with this much like schooling to get here. And so I thought, okay, if I can transform this in my life, what else can I transform? And still at that time, I didn't have many friends. And so I decided to start attending women's retreats and see if I could heal my relationship with women. And I became obsessed with retreats to the point where I had heard about this astrologer that everyone was going to from these retreats. And I decided to try getting an astrology reading, even though I didn't really believe in it at the time. And from attending a lot of retreats, I wanted to host my own retreats, but I had really no business hosting a retreat, no experience hosting them myself, no clients. Didn't really have that many friends either, because that's why I went to retreats in the first place. So I get this reading, and this woman describes my south node and north node. This is important because it's the cornerstone of evolutionary astrology, which I'll get more into. And your south node is basically like your past life and the energy you've mastered in many lives. It's almost like too mastered. It's an energy that's too much of your comfort zone, and you're here to move away from it. And then your north node is this complete opposite energy. It's something you've never done before. You're like a newborn baby, but the more you move towards it, the more your life works out. So the way this astrologer described my chart, she made it sound like I had hosted so many retreats before in my past life, like I had done it before. And because I had been wanting to host retreats, like in my body, I'd been thinking about it so much, I decided to take what she said as permission for me to host my first retreat. And so what I did was I didn't have a credit card at the time. I asked my mom if I could put a retreat house on her credit card. She said yes. And I filled that whole thing in 1 month with 14 people. And that was the start of me hosting 7 retreats in 2.5 years. And so
how exciting was the first one?
Oh my God, it made me believe in astrology, because it was also just like this magical combination. And this is how I like to use astrology, as permission to trust what you're already feeling, even if it makes no logical sense. Like it made no logical sense for me to host a retreat, but I desperately wanted to. And the astrology confirmed that I had all the tools at my disposal to do it. And so then I just became obsessed with astrology after that. I was like, oh my God, this was one of the fastest evolutions I had had in my life. Like compare that to the 20 years I was learning astrology, and it took me to get to that place. And so I just started studying astrology like maniacally, and learning about the south node, learning about the north node. And it just became this guidance that I would use every single day, every single week or month, or whenever I needed guidance, to just affirm how I'm feeling, number one, and give me permission, like a permission slip to do things that were scary for me. But it also helped me surrender. So when like bad things would, quote unquote bad things, would happen in my life, or things that were undesirable would happen, I'd be able to look at the astrology and find the lesson and not resist it so much, but find the way to accept what happened into my life in a way that then helps me evolve evolutionary astrology. And because I knew about my north node, I'd always be looking for ways I could embody more of that energy every time shit hit the fan or things didn't go well. So that's a little bit of my story and how I got into evolutionary astrology. Was that clear? Do you have any questions on that?
No, no, right, that's all really clear. And I'm just curious though, because you're talking about the North Node. That's the path where you're going, and then you've got the South Node, which is where you've been, and also your karma, and also your probably multiple life stories. When you're looking at those, are you looking at them from the point of view of like conjunctions and oppositions and things like that? I mean, how does that work? Can you give like a breakdown?
Yeah, so the nodes are the nodes of the moon, and we do look at conjunctions and oppositions and different things like that when we look at the nodes in your chart, because they tell a story of your evolution. They tell a story of your past life. Your south node's not only what you've mastered, it's also where you're wounded. Because think about it, like too much of anything, you can get wounded by it. It's like too much. Like for example, my south node's in Gemini. Gemini loves to learn things. I see you're a Gemini sun too. You shared your birth chart with me, so you get this. Yeah. Gemini, so curious, loves to learn, but it's seeking answers outside of itself. And so that's why I was such a good learner. I was so good at school. I was so good at learning everything about nutrition and seeking answers outside of myself. But what I didn't realize was that it was a wound to only seek outside of myself. I did it too much, you know? Okay. My North Node, which is new for me in this lifetime, is in Sagittarius. That's about trusting my inner guidance and not needing to learn information outside of me. And so that transition in nutrition, for example, was from learning too much to trusting my inner guidance. That being said, people can have different aspects to their nodes. So, for example, for me, I have my moon squaring. That's in a challenging aspect to my nodes. The moon represents woman, your relationship with nurturing yourself. So, like, I had a challenge with nurturing myself, so I had to learn about nutrition for so long. You know, I had a challenge relating to woman, so I had to like tap into my inner guidance and not like mold myself like a Gemini in order to fit in with people. Do you see how it like tells a story? If people have planets conjunct their North Node, they are typically obsessed with embodying that planet in this lifetime, for good or for bad. So if someone has their sun conjunct their North Node, it's almost like they're learning how to be the core of who they are. They're learning to find success in this lifetime, but the sun is also the ego. So this could also be someone who's very egoic, like a little self-centered sometimes when we see sun conjunct the North Node, because they're so obsessed with their ego and shining and having success and authority. But it's new for them, so they're like figuring out how to work with it. Whereas South Node planets are planets, if a planet is with your South Node, it's hard to move away from that planet. It's almost like you could be attached to that planet. So if someone has, so for example, you actually, if you're okay with me talking about this.
Yeah.
You have Uranus conjunct your South Node. So Uranus is this planet that can make people feel like an outsider, like an alien, like they see things from a very different perspective, and it's very rebellious. And so you came in with those gifts. You came in mastering that planet, but it could also be the thing that holds you back sometimes too, if you lean too far into it, if you're like rebellious just for the sake of rebelling, you know, or like, or it could make you feel misunderstood in your service. And so then it's learning to heal wounds around that and be more surrendered around that for you. If someone had their moon conjunct the South Node, they could have an unhealthy relationship with their mom, like too tied to their family, where their family almost holds them back.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. I love it. Thank you. And how do you describe the difference between traditional astrology and evolutionary astrology in the way that you work with clients? What's the sort of, in a nutshell, sort of description that you give to your clients when they're first starting to work with you?
Like a nutshell description of evolutionary astrology?
Yeah, just so like, you know, just pretend I'm your client that's just met you, and I want to understand how your evolutionary astrology works. I mean, we got the big sort of overview there, but how would you describe it in a nutshell for people that don't grasp?
So I would say we work with their South Node, which is their comfort zone, but also their gifts. So we'll unlock their gifts. but we're
Uh-huh.
also
Yeah.
always moving towards their north node, which is their north star.
Mm-hmm.
And really, in our work together, all we could do is focus on that North Star, that energy,
Okay.
this like archetypal energy, and it would make everything else in their chart work out. It would help them learn all the lessons of their chart.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. In what ways do you see the birth chart as more than just predictions, but as a soul map or guide to inner alignment? I mean, it sounds like you're describing a path that people can take just by a greater understanding of, like you say, their gifts.
Yeah, so I don't find the predictive astrology that helpful
Oh,
unless it's guiding them by energy. So, for example, like, because here's the thing, I look at astrology as energetic currents in the sky. I don't, and with that, and it, just like the wind is an energetic current in the sky, and you could have a tornado, and there could have been like an E5 tornado or something, you could have had 10 E5 tornadoes in the same location in 10 years, but it's going to cause different destruction. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
going to pick up the same exact things every time, even though it's going to move. It's going to probably destroy the place. That's not the best example. It's more of a destruction example. But I look at them as like energetic currents in the ocean. Like you have a
yeah,
riptide. We know it's moving this way, but you don't know if that riptide's going to rip up certain fish or like certain like what it's going to be ripping up and moving forward. And
yeah.
so these are more energetic currents that have limitless possibilities, and you're the creator. It's not that astrology does it for you.
Right, right. So it actually puts you into the position of understanding your part in co-creation of.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, I'm really big on solar return charts as well. So, a solar return chart is cast every single year when the degree your sun that you were born at returns to the exact degree that your sun was at when you were born. So, it's not always going to be on your exact birthday. It could be like midnight before your birthday or 4 a.m. on your birthday or a different time. But what happens is when you have a solar return chart cast, it tells you the energetic currents for the year ahead. So, for example, my last year's solar return, I had Chiron with Mercury on my ascendant, and the North Node was there. Basically, what that meant to me is this year I am moving towards healing my identity and my voice and coming into alignment with what my voice is. And so throughout that year, I leaned into that. I started a podcast, did things that were like practicing speaking in my voice. I really kept it in the back of my mind. Are you people pleasing? Because the South Node was in Libra in my solar return. And I was like, okay, don't people please. This is about healing your voice. This is about like asserting yourself, being a little bit more selfish. And it was just like a current I kept in mind. And that helped me just like navigate my whole year and gain a lot more growth. Currently, right now, with my current solar return, I have my sun with Uranus, and I'm here to just kind of be erratic and unpredictable and break the mold and say things that are crazy and surprise people and shock people. And so I've been, since my birthday a couple weeks ago, I'm also born in May like you, but I'm a Taurus. I've been just practicing letting myself just say the thing, even if it shocks the system. And even though there's parts of me that are like, oh crap, maybe you shouldn't have said that. You're being a little too radical. I just surrender and lean on the permission of my solar return. It's kind of like a game I play, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that description. I can relate to it because I'm, Taurus rising. So I've got a thing that I'm like an ocean liner. I keep on going in the same direction. It's hard to turn. But then that other rebellious aspect comes through, and it's like, just say the thing, and and it pops out, and you're like, oh, maybe I should have said that. Sometimes it's like, oh, did I go too far? But and it usually happens that it's something that I've texted to somebody, and then like I'm contemplating it for ages, and then they write back and it's all right, but it's just my own mind running off, going, ah.
Yeah, it's that Uranus because you have that South Node with Uranus. I have
Yeah,
strong Uranus in my birth chart also, so it's like that deep fear of being misunderstood. But also knowing that, I don't know if it's helpful to you, like knowing that helps me be like, Rachel, you are here to break the mold, and not everyone's going to understand you. And so then it can help you like surrender a
yeah,
little bit more.
yeah. Just allow it. Just allow it. Yes. What does it mean to realign with your soul's timing, and how does that process unfold in your one-to-one membership or cosmic mentorship program?
So, okay, this is a good example. I have a client right now, and she has been really coming into her voice and being less of an authority with communicating. And we've been working on it. It's almost like everything we've worked on has led to the current month, where the current month is about healing her voice and being less of an authority. But a lot of the aspects going on in her chart right now are having her grow and expand in how she sees herself in her one-to-one relationships. And the last 5 months have been about like connecting to her true emotions and coming home to herself. And so it's almost like the last 4 or 5 months we've been working on coming home to herself. Now the astrology in her chart is shifting. Okay, now authentically express. You don't need to sound perfect with how you talk. And naturally, she's just sharing stories with me about how all of a sudden she can communicate these things to her husband she's never been able to communicate before. And I was just able to confirm, like, yes, that's exactly what's going on in your chart this month. And so every time like that happens with us, she's like, of course, everything that's happening in my life, it's always exactly aligned with what's happening in the sky. But here's one thing that I tell her is that, yes, she's having these breakthroughs in communication right now, and she is being more authentic and less needing to seem responsible in how she communicates. But I also told her that this would have happened anyways, but it's happening in a deeper way because she's been doing the work aligning with the sky every month until now. You know what I'm saying? And so the energetic currents in the sky, the transits in the sky, they're always going to impact you. It's just the depth to which you learn the lesson or gain the impact or have the growth is the depth to which you're leaning into it and evolving with it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah. You often emphasize not reflecting gifts, but helping people embody them. How do you facilitate this transformation through astrology? I mean, we've been talking about that altogether already, I think. So that question's pretty much answered. But do you have anything more to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would even say, like, for example, with you, like, we talked about how you have Uranus conjunct your south node. You also have Jupiter conjunct your south node. And so when I think about, and actually Pluto conjunct your south node, so that might have been, you've probably gone through a lot of transformation in your life.
That's why I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah, that's like someone who actually has a lot of power as well. Whenever I see Pluto with Jupiter, that could actually be the aspect of some billionaires and like people who have a lot of power in this lifetime.
Spiritual power. I haven't got the money power.
Yeah. Well, it could be healing power, like the power to help heal other people, be of service to other people, because it's in Virgo. And so to me, going about embodying those gifts is having those conversations and reminding and like having that reminder and like stepping into the highest expression of that part of your chart. A big part of what I do in my coaching with astrology is I'm really into self-concept work. Because in my experience, your self-concept, and it's actually affirmed in the astrology, we can talk about that, it's pretty cool, but your self-concept is what manifests everything to you in this life. And so if we lean into the gifts of your birth chart, which is that you're powerful, you deeply understand healing, and you deeply understand how to be of service, and you probably have a deep desire to be of service, you know, because it's with your south node, there could be some wounding there too, right? Like the path to getting here probably was not easy or pretty, you know? And so like that wounding could come in and be like, well, am I really, because you're here to be more surrendered in this lifetime. So you could think you always have to be in control and prove yourself and do the best and make sure that people see that it's the absolute best. But the self-concept we could anchor into based on your birth chart is, no, you naturally have this power, and the more you surrender, the more you allow life to unfurl the knots for you, the less you talk and the more you just have your presence is where all of your greatest power is going to come from. So we could anchor into the self-concept of like my powers in my presence, for example, or I'm even more impactful when I do less. Like I'm even more impactful when I simplify. You have a 29-degree Taurus ascendant, so I imagine you're a person who identifies as someone who likes to maybe simplify, even though there might be some more things going on under the surface. That's usually how a Taurus rising is they seem so calm on the surface, but underneath it's a lot going on.
Yeah, sometimes it's boiling.
Yeah. But I like to use self-concept work to anchor into the highest expression of those things in someone's chart so that they can like evolve with it, but also be putting the work in.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, you're a podcaster as well, and you've got the Astrology Magic podcast. I just subscribe straight away. It says, I got to know. And it aims at success-driven people who want to harness their energetic currents of the sky. How can listeners of that podcast start practically applying these energies to co-create the life they desire?
Oh, there's so many different ways. Number one, you have your north and south node, your natal one. And so moving toward, like, understanding what your north node is about and the archetype of that energy and the area of life that energy lives in. Like for you, it's in your career. It's in Pisces. So you're here to be more spiritual and have more of like explore the limitless potential of life, pretty much. And the more someone leans into their north node, the more they can harness those energies. Also, though, every single year, about every year and a half, we have a new transiting north and south node. So when the north and south node are transiting, we can lean into the north node and where it is in your chart, and we can look at the south node and look at what we need to release. So the last couple years, the north node was in Aries, the south node was in Libra. So for a lot of people, they're moving towards who they were, what they wanted, and they were shedding doing things for other people, shedding people pleasing, shedding relationships. I know a lot of people shed relationships the last couple of years. I love using the nodes, the transiting nodes, to understand what energy to move towards and what energy to let go of. But also, so this is where the self-concept work comes a little bit more in with the rising sign and how it's explained in astrology, because your rising sign is your identity in your birth chart, but it sets up, do you know about houses in astrology?
Yes.
So there's 12 houses. They represent the 12 areas of life. The first house represents your identity, and so your rising sign rules the first house. So you're a Taurus rising. Taurus rules your first house, but the sign after Taurus is Gemini. So all Taurus risings then have Gemini ruling their second house. So then the second house is finances, income, self-worth. All Taurus risings look at their finances, income, and self-worth in a Gemini way. After Gemini is Leo. After Gemini is Cancer. So Cancer rules your third house. All Taurus risings think in a Cancerian way. So do you see what I'm saying? The identity that you are given sets up how you manage money, how you think, your home life and family life, the types of people you attract into your life, because it goes in zodiacal order, and the rising sign sets up how everything else in your life plays out. But here's the thing is, every area of your life, every zodiac sign has a low expression and a high expression. So Taurus has a high expression and a low expression, and you can explore that as part of your identity and use it to evolve. Gemini ruling your second house has a low expression and high expression. So you can use that you can understand that full archetype, understand where you're at and how to evolve in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense to me. I mean, a lot of people that listen to the podcast too actually do enjoy astrology. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few astrologers out there that are listening and going, oh, yeah, that's great. And if not, they can come and see you anyway.
Yeah.
So many feel overwhelmed by too much sensitivity or intensity in life. How does your work offer a safe space for those kinds of deep feelers to find peace and power?
So a lot of the people that I work best with love going into the depths, and they love magic. So to me, astrology can help make the depths a little bit lighter, because it feels more like this magical, energetic game you're playing. It's like if you could see, I don't know, like the map of a weather storm and you knew it was going to rain one day. If it rained, you're not going to be super upset. So to me, like knowing those things
Yeah.
helps you prepare for it and then helps you
Yes.
surrender to it a little bit more. Another thing that I always explain to people about like evolving and continuously going deep, because I've had clients who are like, gosh, the more I've evolved, the more there is to evolve, like the more things I see, you know what I'm saying? And the way I look at it is it's like working out. You can work out and be healthy and probably minimize a lot of health risks, or you can eat pizza and not work out and not be healthy. Not that pizza is the worst thing in the world. I actually had pizza before we got on here, but you know what I'm saying. Like you can have you can resist working out and being healthy and have a lot more health problems, or you can actually work out and be healthy. It requires some effort, but you'll feel a lot better, you know? And it's the same thing with how I like to use astrology in those tough times in life. There's always going to be weather storms. The earth is always moving and evolving. And so I always remind people and myself that we can surrender and lean into it and do the workout, or we can resist it and not do it at all.
Yeah, I think the way that I like to describe what you've just said in another way is to say that you don't have to believe in astrology for astrology to happen to you. But when you do, then it becomes more of a roadmap, and then you can see the potholes and avoid them.
Love the way you said that. That's exactly it. Simply, astrology, it's just a magical game you get to play. Everyone, if whether it's real or not, you're the creator of your life. Everyone's the creator of their life. What you believe, in my experience, manifests. And so you can just choose to believe in astrology to make life more magical.
Definitely. It does make life more magical for sure. And I mean, I personally, when I was younger, I didn't believe in it either. And I found it a bit challenging to even read it. It was like, oh my God, it's just like somebody said, put your laundry out because it's going to dry better or something. It doesn't make any sense. And then over time, I started to click into it and like, wait a minute, there's some stuff here that actually did happen. And it happened exactly the way that it was said. It's like, oh, damn. So I started seeing astrologers and getting more of a grip of what that meant. And over time, I've come to the conclusion that, yeah, it definitely works. And it has pointed out certain aspects of my life that I wish I knew back then. When I roll back and look at those timings and go, oh, my God, that all happened around there. Wow. You know, so there's so much to it. I mean, it's like we do have a blueprint in life, and to have a way of walking it more consciously is, I reckon, definitely key. So all power to you when you work. Your testimonials mention how profound and cellular your readings are. And what is it like for someone experiencing one of your sessions for the first time?
Oh, I have a whole range of people. I have people who feel like leave the reading and are like, I give zero fucks now. This is just, I'm just going to be me and live my life and blah. And then those are usually the people who enjoy going deep and like enjoy that deep reflection and that permission slip. I've had people cry because they feel seen. I've had people cry because like they're just in an astrological period right now that's asking them to surrender, and I'm going to tell them I'm not like a sugar-coaty person who's just going to turn I don't want to just like, I'm going to tell them the whole range every time and tell them you're the creator. I'm not going to, but I will always steer them towards like the path, their highest timeline. I'm not like focusing on the lowest timeline ever, but if they're focusing there, then I'm going to talk to them in a way that's going to help them get to the other side of it. And so it can also feel like really deep, almost like a coaching session, because I don't want people to leave there focusing on what like kind of the lower vibe things they might have come into the reading with that's being affirmed by the sky. I want to always show them the path to the other side and what the other side's going to give them the more they lean into it.
Nice. Yeah, I looked at your website and saw that you have that one-to-one mentorship, and it seems like that's like an evolutionary path with life coaching at the same time. Is that a great interpretation of what you're doing?
Yeah, I've been on podcasts before where people are like, you're not really an astrologer, you're doing something else. And I'm like, no, I'm doing astrology, but I'm also coaching because I want to use it for evolution. I don't want to just be like, this thing's happening to me, la-di-da.
Yeah, that sort of makes me think of when I started doing my studies in NLP. I was looking around and finding that most of the people that were trainers were training it for like sales and picking up women. I'm like, this is stupid. And I couldn't find anyone for years that was doing it for spirituality, which is what I wanted to use it for. And then I did finally find some people, and they were amazing. Like, they were totally using like NLP for evolution and spirituality, and it changed my life dramatically. So I can imagine that what you're doing is actually doing that for people too, like unlocking all the keys to be able to step into a fuller life.
Yeah, I really believe that when you use astrology in the way that I talk about it, and I know I'm not the only one, but I really believe when you use it that way, I guarantee you can hop timelines, I call it, whatever you want to call it, massive growth in your life every 3 months. And I've had so many clients who have mirrored that. Like, one of my current clients right now, she worked with this coach for about a year before me, and she was paying about $6,000 per month for this coach. It was a very expensive coach. And kind of got somewhere, and in 6 months of us just following the astrology and her focusing on her self-concept, she's like, Rachel, I'm a completely different person. Like, it's night and day compared to that year of coaching I did before, and all we've done is focus on the astrology and her self-concept. It's simple.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So you've been hosting your astrology podcast now for how long? Have you been doing that for now?
A year. I started on my birthday last year for my solar return.
Oh, cool. That's
Yeah.
right. And how has that changed your view on your approach to teaching astrology and spiritual growth?
At this point in my life, now that it's a year later, I started my podcast teaching astrology and being way more factual about it, and almost like explaining things. And I learned over the course of the year that I'm more of a real life story, like showing people how I live it day to day, being the real life example, being less performative around, let me teach you something, and being more embodying of exactly what I'm doing following the astrology.
That's cool.
And I've actually found that more and more people have resonated once I've done that. But it's also because my chart's in alignment with me doing that, rather than just teaching and explaining things.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you today in our interview that I should have asked that was in the back of...
Yeah, so here's something. I believe that we're coming into a time where I actually think some coaching might be on the way out. Like, having someone above you, having someone who knows more than you tell you what to do. And I believe we're moving into more of a time of self-empowerment, of giving someone the tools and like being in support with them, like being their buddy, but not being above them. Like, does that make sense? More like having a buddy you do something with than a coach being above you and teaching you and telling you what to do. And so I've actually been thinking about doing less coaching, less birth chart readings, and I've been getting really into showing people how they can explore their own birth chart through ChatGPT. Now, I'm not for using ChatGPT to determine your whole life, because I think ChatGPT is a people pleaser. But
It does. It makes stuff up. I found with astrology. Like, what?
Yeah.
Where did you get that transit? That's just fantasy.
It's a people pleaser for sure. Yeah. But there's a certain ChatGPT app. It's called Astrology ChatGPT that I share with a lot of people.
Okay.
And it's connected to an actual astrology site, and it's connected to a bunch of ephemerises, and you can give it your birth information, and it can tell you your real astrology, and it's very accurate. And I actually think it's more accurate than a lot of astrology I learn when I like look things up online sometimes. I know. Okay. Now, do I think you should listen to single thing it says? Like, you give it a life problem and have it solve your problem? No, because I find that it just affirms the first thing you say. But that being said, I've been really into giving people the tools to be able to track their transits using the specific astrology ChatGPT. And I even just made a mini course around being able to get your solar return into ChatGPT and have it tell you your themes for the year ahead. And I think that everything's good to be used in moderation. You know, like I do think that it's empowering, that ChatGPT can really give you a lot of power. I've had some massive breakthroughs as an astrologer myself using it with astrology. Yeah, cool. And so I believe we're coming into an age where it's almost like not outsourcing to so many different people anymore, but instead going to ChatGPT, giving it your astrology, and getting a non-biased view of the energetic currents. And so Yeah, that's kind of one thing I wanted to talk about, is that I feel like I want people to empower themselves, is to realize that they have all the answers inside of themselves, that no one knows more than you and no one is above you. And that's why even when I give birth chart readings, I'm never just telling people who they are. I'm always giving them the energy and having them tell me how it fits into their life.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A feedback sort of method.
Yeah.
Nice. What advice would you give someone who is skeptical about astrology but curious about exploring their deeper truth?
What advice would I give them? Then I would say exactly that. I would say get a reading of your birth chart and take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Because like I said earlier in this podcast episode, when you get an astrology chart, there are limitless ways, millions of ways that can play out. And so I almost think it's better to have someone explain the energy of different things in your chart, and then you decide how it fits into your life. It's about, use astrology to connect to your own intuition. Don't use it to have it take your intuition away.
Yeah, look, that's the way I would look at it too. And that's the way I discovered astrology for myself as well, was first of all just looking at it and then realizing, yeah, this stuff actually makes sense. Not all of it, but then, over time I learned better ways to understand what I was looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's I just think it's so important for people to understand that even though you're a Gemini sun, other people who are Geminis could have a completely different experience of being a Gemini, because Gemini is just an archetype that has limitless potentials. There's more introverted Geminis, and there's some Geminis who just need to talk to everyone,
Yeah, I'm more like that one.
And it's the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. So, Rachel, we've come to the end of the show. How can people find you and take up your services and hear your podcast?
Yeah, I have a website that I don't think was on Podmatch, so I can actually send that to you, and we could put that in the show notes.
Yeah, I found
and you can just, on my website, there's my readings, my self-paced programs where you can learn about yourself through ChatGPT, and my podcast.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for coming on to Supernormalize and explaining your understanding of evolutionary astrology. I'm super impressed with the way it works. Never thought of it in that sort of way before. So it's like, wow, this is totally new and cool. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your explanations.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
All right. I'll just say goodbye to the listeners. That was a really good episode. I really enjoyed my connection and talking with Rachel and and gaining a better understanding of her understanding of evolutionary astrology. Her depth of that understanding and how she shared it really came through there. So it piqued my interest, and I'm actually going to take her up on a solar reading myself to find out where that's all going for the next year. So I urge people, if you found this episode interesting in any way whatsoever and piqued your curiosity, then there's links in the show notes on how to connect with Rachel and her services and subscribe to her podcast. So again, great episode. Thank you very much for listening and watching if you're on YouTube. So please like and subscribe so other people can get to find these great episodes too and these good stories. And if you're on a podcast app, remember 5 stars, say nice things, be a nice person. The world loves that. And thank you so much for being here. Until next episode, bye for now.
Like and subscribe.